Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar. Is ideation dead for PMOs, or has it been reinvented? In today's webinar, we will talk about the objectives first and kind of brief overview of what we're covering. Then we'll talk about the benefits of using a SharePoint list to capture all of the project requests, project ideas. Then we'll look at how to actually create that list. Once we've talked about those things, I'm going to log into my Project Online environment, and I'll actually walk you through a demonstration of those features so that you can see for yourself how it works. Once we've completed all that, assuming we have time, we will have a Q&A session and talk about next steps. So let me introduce myself to you. My name is Cindy Moore, and I am located in Houston, Texas. I've been helping clients implement and understand Project Online and Project Server for almost 20 years now. So that dates me a little bit, but we've got quite a lot of experience, not just myself, but also my colleagues and our company as a whole. This gives you just a little sampling of some of the clients that we have worked with, everything from Plantronics to CVS to Staples, some names in there that you may recognize, have used us to help implement either Project Server or Project Online. So we, as a company, offer a lot of different services and solutions. Our primary focus is definitely on the PPM area. We also do SharePoint consulting and general project management training and consulting. We basically do everything from quick starts for Project Online all the way through report development and ongoing support for Project Online or Project Server if that's what your organization is using. So our learning objectives for today. First of all, we want to make sure that we understand the benefits of using a SharePoint list for project ideation. We want to understand how to create the list. And then finally, we want to understand how to promote the request or the idea to a project in Project Center. So using a SharePoint list versus using Project Center. With a SharePoint list, you have the ability to track all of your project ideas. So I don't mean just, hey, here's all the projects we eventually want to do. I'm talking about ideas for projects, things that we're coming up with that we may or may not actually end up doing. For example, let's say that Tommy would like to have his office be completely remodeled with neon furniture. Probably not an idea that's going to get accepted as a project. But things that people are interested in, they think might be a good idea for a project, they can capture in this list, and it gives you visibility of all the potential projects, all the requests. It also gives you the ability to save an idea or a request, and then perhaps in the future revisit it and pull it in as a project at that time. It reduces the clutter, if you will, in the Project Center, and the number of project sites that you have, and the way that you do your reporting. Because if you have these ideas in the Project Center that you aren't actually working on, then you would also have to come up with a way to filter them out of any of the reports that you're running. So it really gives you the ability to separate those ideas. Putting them in the Project Center does give you the ability to pull those pipeline projects into the report. So if that is something that you need to do, then the Project Center would be the better way for you to go. Once you're in the Project Center, you can also create resource plans and engagements, forecast that demand. So understand that the idea list, you're not doing any scheduling, you're not doing any kind of resource demand or forecasting. At most, you would say we expect this project to take 3 years or 7,000 person hours. You know, your estimating would be at a very high level. Again, just looking to vet the ideas and see whether or not we should truly consider them to become projects in the Project Center. So in order to have this wonderful ideation list, there are a few different steps you need to go through. First of all, we've got to identify any fields that we need for that project request, for that idea. And we have to make sure that those same fields exist in Project Online. You know, you go in and create your enterprise custom fields, as you're, I'm sure, already accustomed to doing. So you've got these custom fields. If you want the information that you capture in the request to pull all of that into the project center, into Project Online, if you will, then you're going to need to have the exact same fields and the exact same lookup tables and values. And I'll show you an example of how important that is when we get to the demo. The second thing that you need to do is consider whether or not you need any new project detail pages. For example, for many of my clients, when they are moving a project from a request into the project center so that now it can truly be prioritized and determine when and if we're going to be able to get to it. A lot of times clients want a separate project detail page that has just all of the information from that request. Maybe they call it, request form or something that just pulls all of that information into one place. So it's not a necessary step, it's definitely optional. The third thing you need to do is create the list. So you have to go in and create the list, define what fields you need, and then any value lists for those fields as well. You've got to find the list. And I added number 4 here as a step because sometimes people will go in and create a list and then they can't figure out how to find it. So not only will I show you how to find the list you've created, but I'll also show you a quick and easy way to add it to your quick launch menu so that people can get to it by just clicking on one button and they don't have to go search through everything else. The 5th step is to actually create your new item in that list, your request. Enter your idea. After the idea has been entered, then at some point, and typically it's not the same person who's entering the idea, right? Anyone might be able to enter the idea, but someone from the PMO is likely reviewing those requests. And so the PMO reviews the request and decides, yes, we really want to take this idea seriously. We want to work it into our prioritization and determine when and if we can actually complete the project. So that person would then map the fields from the request form to the Project Online fields, which is really a one-step process, and then finally promote the request to the project center. So this has 7 steps outlined, and it makes it look like there's a lot to follow and a lot to do if you want to use this. It's really not a lot to do. As you'll see in the demo when we walk through it, a lot of these items are 1 or 2 clicks in order to complete. So the first step is to think about your enterprise custom fields and lookup tables. You may already have everything you need configured in your system. If not, you'll need to create the additional fields. And as I stated before, they've got to be created in the list as well as in your project center, with those enterprise custom fields. The SharePoint list fields do not replicate in Project Online with those enterprise custom fields, and vice versa. You do have to create them twice. Any changes to the lookup table in Project Web App, you've got to make those changes in the value list in SharePoint as well. If they do not match exactly, they will not move over. The second step is to determine whether or not you need those project detail pages. So I'm sure you guys are familiar already, if you've been working with Project Online, what those project detail pages can look like. You may or may not need to create one. We're not actually going to go through the steps of creating one today, but it is definitely something you want to consider if you decide to implement this feature. When you go to create the new list, you're going to go into Site Contents, and then you'll create New List. You click Add an App, and then you select Custom List. And as I'll show you in a few minutes, when you click through that, you have the opportunity to create a task list. You can create a custom list. There are different things that you have available, and you want to make sure that you create the custom list, as that's the only one that will work with this particular feature. Navigating to the list, you're going to click on that cogwheel again and go to Site Contents. And then you have to navigate through and find the icon that represents the list that you just created. And we'll do this together as well. And then putting a shortcut to this list on that quick launch is what I was mentioning earlier, and makes life a lot easier for all of your users. So you have your list set up at this point. You've got all of your fields in place. If you needed an additional project detail page, you've already created that as well. So you're ready, you're all set. You can start entering items to the list. If you're at all familiar with working with SharePoint list, you know that in order to create that, you're going to simply click New Item, and then the form will automatically pop up, and you'll be able to enter the necessary information. Once you have created and saved that request or that idea, that's when it goes into what I like to call the waiting zone, right? Until the PMO or governance committee or whoever it is that is responsible for vetting those ideas logs in and goes through the process of reading the information and then determining which ones will be moved into Project Center for further consideration. And this is just a screenshot you see down here where you map the fields. So you want to make sure, as we were talking earlier, this is the field on the left that's in the SharePoint list. We're mapping it on the right to the field that is in Project Center. Now you can map things and the names of these fields don't have to be exactly the same, but the values in the fields do have to be exactly the same. The very last step is if we do decide, yes, we're going to promote this, we've mapped those fields, then you have the opportunity to choose the enterprise project type that you're going to map to. So if you have multiple enterprise project types in your organization, you still have the option of selecting which EPT this project should belong to. All right, those are the steps we're going to walk through in the demo. So I'm going to switch screens now and walk you through how all of this is set up in Project Online. So to get started, what I'm looking at now, what you're seeing is an idea list. You see over here on the left where it says idea list? This is where we go to enter our project ideas. And this is a demo, obviously. So if you see some of the names over here, it's just demos information. But here are the list, and I'll just open one up for you to take a look at. So this is the information that we have entered so that this project idea or request can be considered, to take the next step and get prioritized. One of the benefits of having these ideas in this SharePoint list is you can see these are all here. Even after I promote them into Project Center, they will still, the copy of them will still be here. Benefit of that is, let's say, you move it into Project Center and someone goes in and edits some of the information on the fields that pulled across. If you ever want to go back and see, well, originally we thought it was going to be this, or, we categorized it this way, you have that information. You also have the ability to filter out any of the projects that have been promoted to Project Center so that then the PMO, the governance committee, when they come in here, would only be looking at the projects or the project request, I should say, that they need to consider at this point in time. So remember earlier, I know I said it at least 4 times, and I'm going to say it once more. You have to make sure that the values in your list match the values in your custom field for the project. I'm going to show you an example of that. So right here, I am looking at an item. Let's go ahead and put it in edit mode. And I created this to show you how important it is. So you can see here, ideation demo, choice B, and the project department is IT. This project idea has already been promoted into Project Center. And I went ahead and opened it for you to the project detail page. I want to point out that project departments is blank, but you can clearly see here that project department says IT. And I've got all of the same options. If I come back over to this project detail page, let's take a look at the options for project departments. You will see that it includes all of the same values once it refreshes. There's just one little difference. So these are all the exact same values, but I want to point out that IT is all caps. So it's capital I, capital T, and if I come back over here to my idea list, notice that the project department is capital I, small t. So when I say they have to match exactly, that includes any kind of spacing, it includes, using capitals, characters, anything like that. The values must match exactly. All right, so are you ready to take a look at creating the list? we will go to the site contents area and show you how to create that. So you can start from Project Center, maybe you start from the home page for Project Online, either one. You want to be able to navigate over to your site contents. So when I come up in the upper right-hand area and click on the cogwheel, I have an option here called Site Contents. Now you're going to see a lot of stuff here because, again, this is my demo environment and we add things in here all the time as we're doing testing. What you'll want to do to create your SharePoint list is come over here where it says Add an App. And then Custom List or Tasks. We talked about that. You want to make sure you use Custom List, as that is the only one that will allow you to promote that request over into Project Center. So I'll click on Custom List, and all I have to do at this point is give it a name, and I'm going to call it Zero Ideation Demo 2. I already have one of the others, so I'll click Create. And now my list has been created. But if you'll notice, you're not going to see any kind of shortcut over here for it. The list will live in this area, and I can see it's popping up right here at the top, so it makes it easy for me to find. Based on the alphabetical order, you may have to scroll down in order to find it. The list has been created, but at this point, it is just the shell of a list, really. So when I click on it, we have to go in and define what are the different fields that we would like to see on this particular list. Right now, if I click on New Item, there's only going to be one option, and that's to enter the title. Obviously, we need a lot more than that. So we're going to come up to the top, and we're going to click on the tab called List. Now, if I move over into the List Settings area, which you can find the icon almost all the way to the right-hand side of your ribbon, this is where I have the opportunity to go in and create those custom fields for the request, for the project ideas. So I'm scrolling down just a bit, and I'm going to come down here to where it says Create Column. So we're going to call this column, we're going to use Project to Department. We're going to do the same thing we did earlier, or the same thing you saw earlier, except I'm going to use capitalization for IT all the way through. Now, if I scroll down a little bit, give you an idea of what the rest of this looks like, it's going to change based on the radio button that I select up at the top. So if I come up here and select Choice, and then I move back down, you can see I have an opportunity to enter the various choices there. So we're going to enter Finance, IT, noticed I capitalized those. Let's make sure we get them right. Finance, IT, these are the ones we want to capture. Marketing, Mechanical Design, Operations, and Submissions. So I'll add those as well. Marketing, Mechanical Design, Operations, and Submissions. And let's just do a quick check and make sure I got that right. Finance, IT, Marketing, Mechanical Design, Operations, and Submissions. I think I even got all of the capitalization correct on that. So we'll test that in just a few minutes. Additional things that you can do with these custom fields, you can say that you want it to be just a drop down, or if you want radio buttons for value lists, typically you're going to use the drop down menu, unless you want it to be multi-select. Now, I want to be clear that if you make this multi-select, then the field that you have in Project Center and Project Online must also be multi-select. If I create this field and make it multi-select, when I get to the mapping area, it will not allow me to choose a field that is not also multi-select. So it wouldn't even give me the option, even if the values all matched up. So I'm going to come down to the bottom and click OK. And then let's go ahead and create another field. And we'll call this one request type. And again, we'll do choice. We're not going to end up mapping this one, so it doesn't really matter what it says here. And then again, I'll hit save, or okay. And I'm done now. You know, obviously you're going to have a lot more information than this when you create your idea list, but this is enough to give you a good demonstration of how it works. So I'm going to navigate back over to the list. And now for those of you who are already working in Project Online, and especially if you're doing any kind of configuration, you already know how to edit this list of quick links on the left. But I am going to show you real quick just in case, because it's important that people be able to access this list very easily. So now that I'm looking at the list, I'm simply going to come up and copy the URL. And then over at the very bottom of my quick launch menu, if I click on Edit Links, I can go in and hit New Link and then just decide where I would like it to be placed. And it would show up over here on the left, just like you're currently seeing Idea List over here. Let's see another one we use for demonstrations. So let's go ahead and create a list for our project. Just in case you don't have that link on your list and you need to get back to it, if you come back over to that cogwheel and go to Site Contents, here you can find it this way once again. So let's go ahead and put in a couple of requests, some ideas that we would like to have considered as projects, and then we'll go through promoting it to Project Center. So I'm going to select New Item, and I'll call this, I always like to put a 0 so it's easier to find in Project Center. 0 Project Ideation Demo 2. We're going to leave the project department set as finance, and we'll leave the request type set as A. Now keep in mind, if this field request type does not exist in Project Center, or if it has different values, then this information will not pull across. I kept this here because it's entirely possible that you may have information you need to gather for your project ideas that don't necessarily need to be brought over into the Project Center. Things that would be important for helping the governance team or the PMO evaluate the project ideas. So it's okay for you to have those fields that don't get carried across. And that's why I wanted to make sure you saw that. Now, before we go through the process of updating it, I want to show you another way that you can go in and edit this list. If you come up to the tab here at the top that says Quick List, there's an icon to the left called Quick Edit. And so you could come in here and enter as many of these as you'd like in this Quick Edit view. I'm just going to make that one IT. Not that I would expect there would be a lot of cases for individuals to come in here and submit 10 ideas at one time. But the reason this is important, sometimes I've had clients who say, you know what, we really don't want to open this up for everyone. We don't want just anyone to be able to log in and enter a project idea. You know, we have another process that we've been using, and we'd like to continue to do it that way. So maybe your end users bring their ideas to the business owner, and then the business owner is the person who enters them in here. So in that case, it would be a lot easier for the business owner. If they had 4 or 5 they needed to enter at the same time, then they would be able to do that pretty easily. Now I'm going to stop editing this list so that it takes me back to the normal view. And then the next thing we need to do is map the fields to the fields in Project Online through Project Center. If you're using Project Online today, there's a good chance that you're using the new experience of SharePoint. If I scroll all the way down to the bottom of my screen, you notice here in the bottom left it says Exit Classic Experience. You have to be in Classic Experience in order to see the icon called Create Projects. If you're not in the Classic Experience, you won't see that icon, and you need that icon for this feature. So I have already put this instance into Classic Experience, and that's user by user. You can go in and turn that on and off. And then to take these projects and move them over into the Project Center, I'm simply going to make sure the boxes are checked next to each of them. And then I'll select Create Projects. And then here's my mapping. So by default, it's going to take the title and map it to the project name, which makes sense. Project department, let's see, what do we want that to map to? I think project departments is probably the best thing. One little thing that I'll point out, these fields that you see, they're not in alphabetical order, which makes it, you know, a little frustrating to go through and find them, but you can find them, so that's the good thing. The request type, this is the one that I said we're not going to map it to anything. We're just going to leave it in the idea list. A final note before we create this project, whoever is logged in and coming down here to click on this button, Create Project, by default, that person will be the project owner in Project Center. So I'm going to select, one other thing, sorry, if you look up here where it says Enterprise Project Type, remember I said no matter how many project types you have, you always have the option of mapping a request to a specific project type. Remember though that for this promotion to Project Center, I have 2 projects selected. So whatever project type I select here will be applied to both of those projects. Had they been different project types, I would have needed to select them one at a time because I can only use one EPT here at a time. I'll select Basic Project and then click Create Projects. And this will take several seconds, but you will know when it is finished because it gives you a congratulatory message at the bottom. Yes, there you go, congratulations. So it tells us 2 of 2 projects have been successfully created. I'm going to close this. And we're going to jump over to the Project Center and take a look at our new projects. So here we have 0 Project Ideation Demo 2, which is the first one that we created. And notice that project departments here is showing up, so it does pull the information across as long as you go in and select the right information. So far, we have talked about capturing the project ideas, the things that we want to possibly consider. You know, we're not ready to say they might be a project. All we're saying at this point is they might be eligible to be considered as a project, right? So these are our ideas. The next step in this process, once you've got your ideas, now you've got to determine, okay, which of them are we going to promote? We've done that, so we've moved some of the project ideas into Project Center. The final step would be for us to go through the prioritization process and determine with the prioritization process which projects can we realistically complete. Not only which projects can we do, but when can we do them based on the amount of money we have and what we think they're going to cost and based on the resources we have available. So you've got the right ideas, you've got to get them prioritized, and we do that using portfolio analysis. So Project Online, our Project Server, has an out-of-the-box tool called Portfolio Analysis, and it allows you to go in and first define what your strategic values are. What are the business drivers? And you take each project and you say, okay, this project is going to have a high impact on driver A. It's going to have a low impact on driver B. And you go through that process for all of your drivers or your strategic goals. And then the tool runs in a logarithm in the background and it says, all right, if you rated your projects X, Y, and Z against these business drivers, then the priorities of your projects are here. Because not only do you go in and define what are those business drivers, but you also identify, which of those business drivers are most important, and you kind of prioritize those as well. And it makes it easy for the tool to show you right there in black and white which projects are at the top of the priority list and which ones are down at the bottom. If you want to get more information on that, you can easily access our on-demand webinars. You navigate to our website, and then there's one called Portfolio Management Made Easy. And if you'll send us an email, we'd be happy to send over these slides to you so that you would have that as an easy reference as well. All right, we appreciate you joining us today for this session. I would encourage you as calls to action to start incorporating these techniques. If you have any issues or you want more information, send us an email, give us a call. We'd be happy to help you out. Make sure you go take a look at that on-demand webinar to understand more about portfolio analysis. You can also take a look at our blogs and other webcasts. I would love for you to get linked in with me and then also get linked in with the company, with PPM Works. If you want a copy of the presentation, you want more information about our services, or would like to request any assistance or support with something, feel free to send those questions to info@ppmworks.com.